This is Cookie Breakville. We're going to be your song leaders today, but before we do that, I want to do a couple other introductions. Today we're so blessed, we're going to have our in-house poet, Doug Van Workum, as our performer today. That's very exciting, yes. We also have a special guest with us today, a newly ordained minister, Reverend Mitch Austin, is here today to run our service and to give us a beautiful message. We're looking forward to that. And we'll talk more about that soon. But first, we're going to lead you in a very beautiful song that a lot of you probably remember from when we were in our building before. We used to do this a lot. So Cookie and I are going to lead you, and please sing along. Turn it over to our wonderful guest speaker. I just want to read a little something about Mitch from his bio that I think is pretty exciting. He's been pretty busy since he became Reverend Mitch Austin. He's a member of the Amani Center Ministerial Council and a member of the affiliated New Thought Network. He's also the creator and host of a weekly show on the New Thought Media Network called Change Your Story, Change Your Life. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you, and so excited that you're here today to share your story with us.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to welcome everyone online in the room today to Sacramento Center for Spiritual Living. Isn't this great? This is my first time in this space. Things are happening.
Yeah.
So glad you're here today. And why don't we just turn to a neighbor and say, glad you're here. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. I'm so grateful for online technology, but there is no substitute to look into someone else's eyes and have the power of community, because church isn't just what happens during the service, it's what happens in fellowship and in the parking lot and all the conversations and love and support that we share with each other. So I will get us centered and fully present in today's service. So I'll just invite everyone to take a deep breath in and let it out. As we drop into that innermost space, all of our attention, that most high part of our being that was never born and never died. where all the wisdom, all the love, all the joy, all the answers reside. This part of our being we call our soul, that is the gateway to the highest knowledge, the highest love, the highest healing, the highest direction. And I know as today's service unfolds, it unfolds in that heart, that wisdom, that grace, that power, that connection, that love, that spiritual food. Every mind expanded, every heart open. That each and every person here today is touched, uplifted, fed, inspired, and loved. And so I give thanks for this beautiful place called Sacramento Center for Spiritual Living that was a good idea in the mind of God, in the mind of Spirit. And I give thanks for the volunteers and for the senior minister and for the practitioners and for each and every person present here today and online. Collectively, you are this spiritual community. And we are the hands and the feet and the heart of the divine. And so I just give thanks, knowing that this service unfolds perfectly, lovingly, and gracefully in the heart and the mind of the divine. I release this word, and join me in saying, and so it is. Blessed be. So we have some readings today. Our first reading comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. The cedar tree doesn't have any desire to be a pine or a cypress or even a bird. It's a wonderful manifestation of the cosmos just as it is. You are the manifestation of the cosmos. You are wonderful just like that. Our second reading comes from Ernest Holmes. Most people, through ignorance of the higher laws of their being, are suffering from the thoughts imposed upon them from a negative and doubtful world. We, who are claiming the use of the greater law, must emancipate ourselves from all sense of limitation. We are not to be governed by the outer confusion, but by the inner realization. We are to judge life not from the way that things in the past have been done, but by the way that Spirit does things. And don't we need to remember that now more than ever? So it is. Perfect.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So the poem I have for us this morning is one that I wrote while taking some classes offered here through the center. And it's writing a poem is my way of kind of integrating the new ideas, making sense of them and how they can fit into my life, the small issues and the big issues. This one is about self-growth. Actually, they're all about self-growth. But some of the topics are change, starting anew, letting go of the old, patience, shame, and forgiveness. Can't forget forgiveness. Just a few lightweight topics for our Sunday morning considerations. This is called My Journey So Far, or Things I Am Learning Along the Way. My journey so far has taken me through 65 years of living. I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of it. For so long, whenever I move forward on this path, I'd leave behind some strange kind of impression from the weight of all my false beliefs. Now, every time I put my foot down on this earth, I pray my step is light and true. You know, there's no shame in limping when we start out towards the divine. There is no shame in limping when we start out towards the divine. We've all carried the burdens of some misunderstandings for so long. Why is it so hard for us to put our burdens down, and harder still to take up a healthy new thought? To refuse to begin again is one of the worst acts of self-betrayal. What really comes first? Our desire to grow, or God's hint of perspective? Before any great new idea will ever agree to come and live through us, we first have to throw open wide the gates of our own growing consciousness. Listen carefully, friends, when Rumi says, start a huge and foolish project like Noah. It's all right. If we haven't yet fully grasped all these healthy new ideas. Is that okay?
Yeah.
It's all right. If we haven't yet fully grasped all these healthy new ideas, just by looking in their direction means we've already begun to change. It's okay if you don't agree with me and what I feel is true. Though tell me, does the song you sing lift us all up and the whole world with it? For the true artist, there are no victories, just a ripening that grows through every endeavor. It's important we learn to put our burdens down each night, even if just for a little while, because then we can practice carrying ourselves with grace. Douglas, you still judge yourself so harshly for the fears and resentments you carry in this life. Remember, the wheel of forgiveness turns for each of us every single day. How long before you realize that every step you take trying to find your way home only brings you closer to knowing that you have never left? Douglas, how long before you realize that every step you take trying to find your way home only brings you closer to knowing that you have never, ever left?
Let's give it up again for Doug. Woo! I feel like I'm all zenned out right now. Does that change?
It's the perfect time.
Oh, it's still moving? Oh my goodness. Yeah. There we go. Well, good morning. I'm your newly baby fresh reverend here. And I just love this stole. So this was gifted to me by the Amani Center. And my most precious possession is this. It's an aftermarket edition. And I went to The Affiliated New Thought Network retreat. It's the first week of October. If you ever get a chance, you need to go. It was one of the most life-changing things I'd ever done. It was phenomenal. And one of the main speakers, Nemo Patel, yes, he was performing there. And he actually works in India at Gandhi's ashram with orphans. He had left like a $250,000 job to go do this work, talk about calling, and we're going to talk about callings today. And when he came to speak at the retreat, he brought these little hearts. And this heart was made in Gandhi's ashram through their work program, teaching people to sew so they could have a vocation. And so I just feel like, you know, this little heart came all the way from India. And it's amazing that we can touch each other all around the world now, just small parts of us just rippling out into all kinds of spaces. And so I just think of this with the fondest of memories. So it absolutely belongs between, you know, the lotus and the hummingbirds here on the stall. So very proud of this. So today's talk is called, Who's Calling? Who's Calling? Remember the days before caller ID? And you pick up, who's calling? Or if you're really brave and your phone rings with just numbers and you answer it and they say your name, are you there? And you go, who's calling? Deciding if you want to answer it. And I'm going to talk about 3 types of callings today. The calling from our head, that's very loud and splashy. It's rational. It's got a lot of logic going on. It's practical. You know, anyone ever make the pros and cons list when you were dating someone? Pros, cons, should I stay, right? It's in the wrong lane. I mean, that's the heart's lane. You know? And that voice is loud and splashy and judgy, always second-guessing things that come into your consciousness. So we need to know when we need to answer that call, when we need to hang up. Because sometimes we shouldn't be listening to that voice. And sometimes that we should. And then we have the calls of the heart, the beautiful heart. That's our emotions. That's our feeling self. That's the self we feel with our body. You know, the excitement or the passion or the disappointment or fear. Right? That's our heart speaking to us. And it doesn't speak the language of this. You ever notice that? Longest distance between these 2 points? So its call is nonverbal, and we feel it in our bodies. And there are times we need to listen to that call. Sometimes we co-sign for the car for our adult children when maybe we shouldn't, right? Because we love them. It's a heart thing. It's about what we love, not what's logical. And then the third call, the call that we really need to listen to and follow and we can trust, is our soul's call. That calling that drops in from out of the blue. Anybody know that spot? You ever wonder where the blue is? It transcends logic and emotion. And it has a profound sense of meaning and fulfillment and alignment. It's our truest self communing with our human self to give us direction, to pull us in a certain place for that next iteration of ourselves. Right? Because the truth is we're always changing. And we can either surrender to the call that's moving us forward or be dragged. Anyone ever be dragged? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So here's an example. Anybody want to write a book? Anybody be like, oh, I want to write a book someday? We got a few people that like, anybody tell you should write a book, right? There's usually somebody that wants to write a book. And our head will say, who are you? Or it'll say, there's so many writers in the world, or there's no money in it, or who published it? That's your head. And your head's getting in the lane of your dreams. Wrong lane, right? Or your heart might get excited all of a sudden. Anyone get an idea and you're super excited and you're passionate, and then you're worried. What if I fail? What if I look stupid? Or you start to feel some uncomfortability, some fear, some anxiety. That might be your heart speaking to you. But you know it's a soul call when the pull is so strong and it defies logic, it defies your emotion, and it's something that doesn't go away. Who has something that keeps calling to them that doesn't go away? Yes, okay. Well, here's the good and bad news. That's your divine direction. And you can trust it. And you might find yourself, you know, if you're wanting to write a book, you might find yourself perusing classes or workshops or looking for editors. It just keeps calling to you in small ways. I had this experience. Fun fact about me, I am a transgender man. And before I transitioned my gender from female to male, before I even knew in my head what was going on, changes were happening. Changes, like I wasn't shaving my legs anymore, and I was watching these documentaries on transitioning. I couldn't stop watching, but I didn't know why. It was my soul calling me, pulling me forward to the next expression, even though my mind hadn't really grabbed, what is this? And that's what we find ourselves doing sometimes. Why am I looking this up? Why am I collecting boxes? Maybe you're going to have a move. You don't even know it's coming in yet, but you just know you got to collect boxes. Right? Or it's time to move, or it's time to do something new. That's a soul call. And we need to understand that our heads belong in things of the world, matters of the world. Like if I'm going to go for an interview, right, and I love to wear my ripped jeans, I want my head to say, do you want the job? Better, right? It's going to have us navigate the norms and expectations of the world so our intention can translate. That's a good thing. But when it's in the lane of your dreams, your soul call, it's out of bounds. Because it's going to judge you by rules and norms and expectations that don't apply to spirit. Right? Spirit can create doors and windows and places that our minds can't. And we need to remember that when we get that call. And our heart sometimes is scared. It wants to run away. But we can trust a soul call because the soul call is the one that's already provided for. See, Spirit doesn't call the qualified. Spirit qualifies the call. All this is added unto you when you say yes to your soul calling. I saw this meme online, I love it. It said, the more you listen to your soul, the true you, the more you will realize the part you play in the universe. So many of us are looking for our purpose. Why am I here? What am I to be doing? How am I to serve? And even the smallest soul call can lead us to really big places. Everybody remember Toys for Tots?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there was a woman who was retired. She didn't know what to do, and she got this little idea. There's a lot of kids that don't get toys during Christmas. And she thought, well, I'm going to reach out to my friends, and we're going to start collecting toys. And look what that little thought, that little soul call grew into. We just never know what's ahead of us and why we're being pulled into these soul callings. So you want to know the language? You want to know some of the ways our soul call speaks to us? Well, there's 3 I'm going to focus on. Our feelings, that feeling tone, we just feel we need to do something. Our dreams, and our visions. So I have a couple examples from the book called One Mind. Who knows that book from the MD, Larry Dossey, One Mind? If it's not in your metaphysical library, please get it. It's phenomenal. Medical doctor who explored, and the subtitle of his book, One Mind, is how our individual mind is part of the greater consciousness. Because we all have a zip code in this one big mind. But that zip code is connected to all of it, everything in it. And here's some good examples. So here's an example of a feeling call. There was a woman who had worked at her job for 15 years, and when she left her job, she always went right to go home. And this one time, which she got a call, a feeling to go left, but it was longer, right? Mind wants to argue with the soul call. It's longer, but she really felt like she needed to go left. So she went left. Later, she found out the Mississippi bridge she always travels over had collapsed. And 13 people had died. Right? It's not logical. Second story, I love this story. So there's a man, he has a dream that his friend's chartered plane crashes. And he tells his friend, hey, don't go on the chartered plane. And the friend's like, oh, it's going to take so much longer to go on commercial. It'll be fine. I'm going to go on the chartered plane. So the friend meets him at the airport, tackles him, makes him miss the charter plane. The friend is irate. Now he has to go travel commercial. And the charter plane crashes. There was no survivors. And this last one, I think, is phenomenal. And there are 2 stories of the similar situation where they see numbers. This woman kept seeing numbers, a jumble of 10 numbers. So she wrote them down. She didn't know why she was seeing them. She was visually seeing them, and she decided to call them, and she reached a hospital. And they're like, well, can we look for somebody for you? And so she said her son's name, and he was in emergency. He had just been in a car accident. See, there is, our knowing of things is really non-local. And we have access to it all. But because we believe we don't pay attention to it sometimes. Anybody ever have that small piece of information drop in, right? And you didn't listen?
I didn't listen.
I had this experience. Towards the end of my mother's life, I was her caretaker, and I would put her on a feeding tube at night, and I would take her off in the morning. And this one particular night, I put her on the feeding tube, and I went back to work till midnight. And I came out of work, and something said, go left, go see your mother. And it's midnight. And I thought, no, I'm not going to go see her. And so I went home, and the next morning, she had made her transition. So we need to listen to these soul calls. We don't need to know why. We just need to follow them. So here's the thing. We think about 60 to 80,000 thoughts every day, and they're about the same thoughts. Anybody ever hear that? Yeah, right? So if you think the same thoughts, you vibrate the same vibration, and you get the same outcome. But here's the deal. When we listen to the soul, it can move us beyond the edges of our mind, beyond those ordinary thoughts, so we can get a shift, so we can get a new experience. That's why it's so powerful to listen to these soul callings. So I'm going to go a little deeper into 3 categories of soul callings. The first one I want to talk about is spiritual callings that call us to an inner journey, an inner awakening, so that we can have a shift, a healing, higher ground, a knowing that we didn't have before, beyond those 60,000 thoughts. And then the second type of soul calling I'm going to talk about is creative callings. We're all the inlet and outlet for spirit. We are literally the hands, the feet, and the heart of God. Only the things that can come in through onto the planet have to come through us and as us. There's nothing else that's going to bring it. And so when we have a creative calling, that is our channel for divine expression into the world. And when people say yes, we're changed. Like Doug said yes to his beautiful poetry. Isn't that amazing? Yes. That's amazing. You won't find that anywhere else. Not in this form. And then the third call, soul call, is our healing call. When we know it's time to forgive that person, yes. When it's time to give up something that isn't good for us and to heal some aspect of our being. That's the third call I want to talk about today. So let's start with spiritual callings. Any Byron Katie fans in the room? So her story is a beautiful story of a soul call. She had went through, oftentimes a spiritual calling starts with a dark night of the soul. And her dark night of the soul is she wouldn't leave her bedroom. She was in there almost 24/7 with the lights off. And she had these dark, judgy thoughts. In fact, she felt she wasn't even worthy to sleep in the bed. She'd sleep on the floor. And then she heard something that she hadn't heard before. What if her thoughts are lying to her? What if it isn't true? And then she asked, well, if it isn't true, what I'm thinking about myself and all this judgments, then who would I be if I didn't believe this was true about myself? And it started her on a healing path. Not only a healing path, she created a whole spiritual tool called the work, where you ask 4 questions to go past what your mind might be thinking. And she went on to write books. She went on to do a lot of healing work in the world. But that shift, that spiritual awakening came when she listened to something new that dropped in, her soul speaking to her. She could see something she couldn't see before. I had this experience. When I was in college, I was very close to my mom, but we had a bumpy relationship, you know. She had went through some rough mom periods with addiction, and so, you know, those time periods I was holding against her, you know, like emotional blackmail. Anyone ever been there? Emotional blackmail? And I had some vision of the ideal mom that she should be, right? Nobody fits that. I didn't know that, but I thought she should have fit it, and I held her to that standard. And then my junior year in college, I remember I called her, because I called her a lot, and I couldn't get a hold of her. And I thought, this is not this is not good. She's always home. And I kept calling and calling. All of a sudden, I got scared. I thought, I'm going to call the hospital. And she was there. And I thought, well, put me through to her, because I don't know what's going on. I didn't know she was there. And she picks up the phone, and she doesn't recognize me. She had an electrolyte imbalance that plunged her into a psychosis. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know me. And I rushed all the way from Moraga to Monterey. Surprised I didn't get in an accident or a ticket. And I talked to the doctors, and they said, well, we don't know if she's going to come out of this. And I went into a dark night of the soul. I did a lot of prayer, a lot of communion with God. And you know, I had a realization about my mother I hadn't had up until that point. And what I realized is she was just a human. She was mortal. She was just somebody who decided to love me. She didn't have to. And my whole concept of her changed. I had an inner healing, and I prayed to have her back in whatever form. And she slowly started to recover, and she came back into my life. But our relationship wasn't the same. Now there was nothing that was too much. I'd take out the garbage without being asked. You know? I was different, and our relationship was different. And it blossomed over 20 years to a very deep, close, rich, and beautiful relationship. But it took that spiritual awakening, that inner calling, to see something I hadn't seen before. So I invite you right now to think about, is there a challenging situation, someone you have some upset with? Let's just take a deep breath in. Let it out. Just drop within your inner self. What's that unresolved hurt, judgment? What's that barrier to your good? What new perspective is wanting to come in? That call of your soul for a deeper awakening, to see something, to know something, or to act on the knowing that's come in. It's time. It's time to forgive. It's time to release. It's time to step into a higher truth. Maybe I was just a call for love. Maybe they were just a call for love. And be willing to see what you haven't seen before, so that it will start to shift and grow you into a new direction for that situation or that relationship. And I just invite you now back into the room, fully present. You can open your eyes. So let's talk about the second soul calling, creative callings. To be a channel of divine expression. Anyone know about the Wright brothers? We all know about the Wright brothers. Yes, yes. Well, they weren't the only ones trying to invent flight. In fact, there was a guy who was very well funded. He was a very well respected scientist, and they were all throwing money at him, and he was, having these big press galas about inventing flight and what they were going to do and what they were going to call them, airships or airplanes. And then there was these two guys that were just called to go out into the field and start putting stuff together and crash and try again and crash. Something kept pulling them, calling them. I'm sure their friends are like, can you give it up already? You think you're going to make it the next time? Then to go past their mind, past the fears of their heart, and stay on point with their soul's calling, that pull. And they're the ones that did it. See? Qualify the call. I had a similar experience. I wanted to be a TED Talker in 2012. I was so excited. I want to be on TED Talk, but I didn't know how. And I thought, one night I was falling asleep and I had a vision. So that was how it came through. And I saw a stage, and I saw me up on the stage with a little red carpet, and I was there with all my friends, and we were just doing our own TED Talk. I thought, we'll just do our own thing. I said, yeah, that's what we'll do. We have a little group of people, we'll all write talks, and we'll invite our friends, just like when you're playing with your kids. And that's 2012. And then what I did? Nothing. But I have one friend, Rosemary Romano, I swear God was speaking through her. Every time she saw me for 6 years, she said, when you're doing that speaking class, I'm going to go. I'm like, okay. In our heads, that's going to happen. And then in 2018, I entered ministerial school, and I thought, I need money for ministerial school. Oh, what about that class? So I threw it together. I threw a little flyer. I asked my minister. She said yes. And I printed the flyer, and that's all I did. And then the Sunday before the class started, because I'm a peer, right? I'm fighting this. I'm in the back of the church. The senior minister walks by, and I was sure she was going to say no, but I had to ask, right? Can I talk about my class that starts this week? And she's like, sure, find whoever's doing announcements. I'm like, oh my God, I have nothing written. And I've got to convince people to come learn public speaking from me. This is going to go great. And I got up there and I did the one key thing I know about public speaking is when we come from here, we all feel it. So I just spoke from my heart. After service, everyone came over and it filled up that day. And then that Wednesday, we started the first Rise and Speak class that has been gone through a series now for 5 years. And I've put almost 100 people through it and I have a 95% completion rate. That's a God thing. And the stories that have come out, the healings, the audiences, it's one of the best things I think I've ever done in my life, to be honest. Who's some of our Rise and Speakers in the room? Yeah, that was a soul calling. Thank you, soul. Thank you, spirit. But we all have those, and we can trust it and we can lean into it. So I just want to invite you again to take a breath. What's calling you to create or to take a step? Are you being called to create a book or to sing or to volunteer or to adopt a child or a dog or a cat? What creative endeavor is pulling at you to bring into the world? Maybe it's something small, like toys for children. There is no small or tall in spirit. So whatever you're being called to do, that's yours. It's sacred. And you can begin and you will be supported. Just say yes. And the how will unfold before you. And I just invite you now back into the room. You can open your eyes. I love this quote from C.R. Lamont. A writer says, and in reality, that's what creativity really is. A spiritual connection with our higher power and one-on-one talk with your own soul. Isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. The last type of spiritual calling I want to talk about is healing callings, where we're called to heal and be a healer in the world. You know who exemplified this in a very powerful way? Was Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson, who was an alcoholic. And even before the term then was coined, they called them drunks. They called them all kinds of other names. And there was no AA to go to. But he had a calling. He had a thought. What if I got with a friend and we both worked together to quit? And then another resource showed up. Some of this metaphysical teachings we teach today showed up to support their efforts. And then pretty soon they had a group. And then the group started to create some practices. And those practices grew into what we know today as Alcoholics Anonymous. That has supported not only people struggling with alcohol addiction, but all kinds of addiction. See, he healed and he then became a healer. Same with Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza, a chiropractor, gets in a horrible bicycle accident. And they tell him, oh, you need these rods, you need these pins, we got to rebuild your spine. And he had a thought, a call. What if I could heal a different way? What if I can use my mind? And he started using his mind for months and months and months to help rebuild his spine and his tissues and to heal. And now he's teaching it all over the world. He has books. Who's heard of Joe? Amazing stuff. But he said yes to his soul calling, and he trusted and followed it. So I had a similar experience back in 2008. I was struggling with an addiction, And I'd reached a low point where I didn't recognize who I was. I was reacting in ways that wasn't me. Short, angry, judgy, really unreliable, like all kinds of personality defects. And I remember sitting in the backyard thinking, who am I? And I was in so much torment. And then I began to think about my father, who was an alcoholic, and how much judgment I had about him. And I thought, was that who he wasn't? Was he being a version of himself he really wasn't? Because I'm being a version of me I'm really not. And then I had another thought. I thought, the only way I'm going to get to my own self-forgiveness is through forgiving him. And I didn't know how. He was off the planet. I didn't know that. And I didn't know about forgiveness practices. But I did the very powerful prayer, the help me prayer. God help me. Help me forgive him. I don't know how. And then things started to unfold. I went to see my cousin a couple months later, and she just happened to pull out all the pictures of the family, many of them with my father in them. And she was telling me another story about how that was her favorite uncle, and he'd always come with silver dollars, and she just loved him. And I'm like, that was not my experience of him. And she said, you know, the family often said after he came back from World War II, he was different. And they didn't have Wounded Warrior then. He didn't have anywhere to go except the drinking buddies with his war buddies. And he was doing the best he could do. And I had a whole nother vision. I began to see my father as innocent, just as innocent as I was. And I had a healing, not one that I knew how to get, but that I opened to because my soul was calling me to my own healing. And I firmly believe because of that healing, I was able to take the next step in my own healing and mastery of addiction. And I'm over 12 years clean. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to invite you one more time to go. Deep breath. And let it go. What overcoming have you experienced? What healing are you being called to or have been called to that you can now heal in the world? Maybe you overcame an addiction and you're being called to be a sponsor now. Maybe you've struggled with mental wellness and now you're ready to help others in support groups. Or maybe your struggle was with money and now you've become debt-free and you're ready to help support others in their relationship with money. Or maybe it's you've overcome self-judgment. You've found internal love of self. And you're ready to reach out and support people on their journey of inner healing. Or maybe you're just in process to heal those as you begin your journey to heal and to be a healer. That's your soul's call. You can trust it. You can follow it. You can lean into it and you will be led, you will be held, you will be carried, and you will be safe. So I invite you now back into the room. You can open your eyes. So I love this quote from Brene Brown. She says, one day you will tell the story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide. That's the importance of the work that we're doing. So let us listen to our soul's calling and respond consciously. And let us remember that our mind is for the rules of the road of the world, on the world's paradigm and how it operates. It doesn't belong in the Spirit's call. And then our heart is for our feelings and our emotions and what we love. Let's follow that and honor it and not let the mind tell us differently. And lastly, any time and all the time we feel our soul's call, we see our soul's call, or we dream about our soul's call, let us say yes. Take on the journey. Because here's the thing. We are always influencing each other. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't said yes to my own healing of addiction. I wouldn't be in front of you. We are all like ripples in the pond of humanity. And we may never know all the good that happens from our yes, but we will feel a peace in our soul that defies explanation. And that is my deepest prayer for each and every person in the room today. Thank you so much. Blessed be. Let's take this message into prayer. We just take a collective breath in and let it out. So I'm knowing that there is only one power, one presence, one truth, and that is the truth of spirit. Everything is created in the unseen before it moves into the seen, and that there is an intelligence behind that. There is a power behind that. There is a love behind that. And love's call, love's appointment, love's wisdom, love's strength is calling to each and every person here in the room and online and everybody on the planet to heal what ails it. To expand the presence of spirit on earth. More joy, more love, more peace, more healing, more hope, more light. And each of us an inlet and an outlet for this presence on the planet. And so I just remember and give thanks that the calls have been heard, that the footsteps are being taken towards the light, spirit, and the good that we are being called to. And I just give thanks for this. And I release this word in the perfect activity of love and law. And together we say, and so it is. Blessed be.
Thank you, Mitch. That was wonderful. So in this poem, I play with the idea that we learn here in this center, or through this teaching, that we are always at choice. Quite a challenging idea. In this poem, at the end of each stanza, I use a phrase, always at choice. And when you hear it, I invite the audience, if you feel so inclined, to join in, to think of it as the chorus portion of a song. That always at choice will be in a sentence of either I am at choice, we are, or they are always at choice. Let's give it a try and see how it sounds. This life was here before eternity began, and will remain when forever winds down. Friends, it may take me 3 classes, 3 decades, or 3 lifetimes. I can't really say. All I know is I am here to learn. I am always at choice. We know now, don't we, that all prayer must include what's best for everyone involved. If not, how can we enjoy a meal when others at our table go hungry? So let's all pray together to remember we are always at choice. Tell me, why should we struggle so hard to reach those higher realms of learning when everything we need is right here, all around us, and within our own grasp? God, if we learn just one thing in this life, let it be that we are always at choice. when the acrobat swings out over the crowd and lets go of her flying trapeze, she bets her entire life on knowing right where the next swing will be. My life swings somewhere between the two spiraling towers. The one is of my own free will, and the other is of God's amazing grace. Friends, what I'm really trying to say here is, I am always at choice. It's true, the awakened heart can set the powerful horses of intention thundering across the open prairies of the heart. But none of that matters if we forget we are always at choice. So what if the poor person wins the lottery? So what if the rich one gains enlightenment with their last dime spent? None of that matters if they forget they are always at choice. Praise God. I am finally learning now how to dance between those two great pounding hammers of life and of death. Who really knows? I may live forever, or I may die tonight. But none of that matters if I forget I am always at choice. So let's set a welcoming table and prepare a most nourishing meal. Let's spread these ideas out before us like plates of warm, nourishing food, and never forget life tastes always so much better when we remember we are always at choice. Friends, help me now. I don't know whether to end this poem right here now or not. Oh, wait. I just remembered. I am always at choice.
Thank you, Doug. This is our offering time, and before I turn it over to Reverend Mitch to do our offering affirmation, I just want to, as the president of the Board of Trustees, extend a deep thank you and gratitude to everyone who has contributed to the building fund. And you can see what your donations have done. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. We have a new sanctuary in there that we're going to be working on soon. But just to let you know, bathroom number 2 is almost done. We're going to have 2 bathrooms here real soon. And so your continued support of the building fund is so needed and so appreciated, along with your regular monthly tithing. And I want to tell you a little bit about how important it is for the center to have that regular monthly tithing. We have an electric bill now. Can you believe it? We have an electric bill, we have insurance, we have all those things, and those of you who contribute on a regular basis, that's how we keep the doors open. That's how we're going to eventually be paying our lease. And it means so much, not only to the center, but to all those who are coming in the door that have never been here before. Those people who are coming and looking for a place, a community to be with, your contributions are creating that place for those new people to come. So thank you on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Sacramento Center for Spiritual Living. Mitch?
So I just invite you now to take your gift in your hand, whether it's cash or check, or if you're going to donate online, you can hold your phone. And repeat after me. In a consciousnness of abundance, I give freely knowing that I am given to. And so it is.
And so it is.
We're going to go back to doing a song while the basket's being passed. Can you believe it? We're back to some normal stuff again. I am so blessed, I am so up, remember that our website is the place where you need to go to find out what's going on. Also remember the prayer requests are on our website, and it's just amazing. Our prayer team prays all week long on those prayer requests, and there are so many wonderful demonstrations that are happening because of those prayers that are happening. So please remember that. We have an exciting Sunday coming up next Sunday. Not only are we celebrating Halloween, but Dia de los Muertos. Hey, I did pretty good with that, didn't I? Thank you, Jennifer. We are going to be celebrating that tradition, and if you don't know what it is, it's a tradition that people set pictures of their loved ones, a lot of their favorite foods, or different trinkets that are part of their family. We celebrate our ancestors, our loved ones who have passed, and so we're going to have a celebration next week. Wear a costume. There's a little costume, competition maybe happening, and we're going to share together. Bring pictures of your family or things that you want to share. You want to tell some stories about your family members, even your pets. Last time people brought pictures of their pets who had passed too. It was just a wonderful time to share that love of those who have transitioned and to share in our community. So please come and share the fun next Sunday. Also, we are going to have a parking lot sale right out here in this parking lot on November 10th and 11th. And I know there's a lot of people who have been saving things from their garage and their closets. So we're gonna get some more information about how we're gonna organize that, but that's when we're gonna have our sale. We need volunteers to come and help with that. And if you're really good at, I know Corey is, man, she can sell anything. So, we need volunteers for that. If you're wanting to help with that, we'd love to have you volunteer, and just put that on your calendar so we can have a lot of fun out here. Also kind of letting people know that we're here by having our parking lot sale. It'll be fun. Back to you, Mitch.
Okay, so I have our affirmation, and I'm going to invite you to say it aloud with me. I release everything that is no longer serving me. And so it is. So I just know, as we move out upon our week, we take this inspired service with us in our hearts, in our minds, in our very vibration. And that each of us is divinely directed, protected, uplifted, and celebrated until we return again. And I invite you to say with me, and so it is. So please join us for our closing song and fellowship after service today.
Okay, so we're going to do a little experiment with our closing song. This will be fun. So, you all know who Gary Lynn Floyd is, right?
Yes.
So he does this beautiful closing song that we've done in the past. So I still need to email him and ask him for the chords so I can learn how to play it. But he's going to play, and we're going to do a call and response. We're going to sing with him right on the TV. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on. There we go.
Love be with you,
Love be with you,
peace enfold you,
peace enfold you,
spirit lift you,
spirit lift you,
breathe it in,
breathe it in,
truth come through you,
truth come through you,
make good flow to you,
make good flow to you,
let joy renew you,
let joy renew you,
till we meet again,
till we meet again.
love be with you,
Love be with you, love be with you, love be with you.
love be with you, peace unfold you, spirit lift you, breathe in, truth you. Make good love to you. Let joy bring you to me again. Love be with you. Ooh, 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 love be with you. I love you all. Love you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everyone.